So today we're headed to Lewes, the county town of East Sussex. And yeah, on the surface, it's the absolute picture of English charm. You know, rolling hills, historic streets. But that's just the cover of the book. The real story of Lewes isn't what you see right away. I mean, is it just another pretty market town, or is there something else, something a lot more fiery, bubbling right under the surface? Oh, you better believe it. This town's story is intense. It's all about power, rebellion, and a fierce independence that's literally written in stone, soil, and smoke. We're talking burnings, battles, ghosts, and even a freak avalanche.
All right, so let's start peeling back those layers, shall we? Because in Lewes, seriously, every single building, every little hidden alleyway, it all tells a piece of this incredible story.
And this quote, man, it just nails it. This is the heart of what Lewes is all about. It's not just the story of a town. It's a story of an idea. The idea that ordinary people have every right to stand up and challenge power. And that idea echoes through everything we're about to dig into.
Okay, so the first place we've got to look is right in front of us, in the stone and timber of the town itself. The architecture here tells a story, and these buildings are more than just old. They've been silent witnesses to almost 1,000 years of drama. You've got three main players that define the town's historic backbone. First, there's Lewes Castle. It's a pretty rare Norman design with two defensive mounds, or mottes, which was basically a giant sign that said, "We're in charge now." Then you had the Priory, England's very first monastery of the super-powerful Cluniac order. It was a hub of incredible wealth, right up until it was destroyed. And finally, there's the Anne of Cleves house, a perfectly kept Tudor home that reminds you how even huge royal dramas were woven into the everyday life of this town.
And to really get Lewes, you've got to learn its own unique language. I'm talking about its architecture. You don't walk down alleys here. You squeeze through Twittons, these ancient, super narrow paths. You'll also see walls that look like brick, but surprise, it's often a clever trick using something called mathematical tiles to get around an 18th century tax. And everywhere you look, you'll see walls made of napped flint. That's local stone split just right to create this tough, glassy surface, a real signature of Sussex building. But okay, look past the stone, look past the timber, and that's where you find the town's real identity. Lewes has always been, well, a powder keg, a place where the fight for rights and freedoms wasn't just a friendly debate, it was a literal battle. And you can see this defiant streak running right through the centuries. It's not a one-off thing, it's a pattern. Back in 1264, the Battle of Lewes was a huge deal, a key step towards England's first real parliament. Fast forward 300 years, and religious conflict led to 17 Protestants being publicly executed right here. And then, 2 centuries later, that same radical energy helped shape a man who would go on to help ignite 2 world-changing revolutions.
I want you to really focus on that number for a second. 17. These weren't powerful people. They were your everyday tradespeople, brewers, weavers, laborers, who were publicly burned to death for what they believed. Their executions forged this fierce anti-authoritarian streak deep into the town's soul, and honestly, it's never really left.
So you can imagine this atmosphere, right? It was the perfect breeding ground, the perfect incubator for someone like Thomas Paine. He lived in Lewes for 6 years, joined a debating club they called the Headstrong Club, and it was in the pubs and meeting rooms of this town that he really sharpened the arguments that would later become world famous in books like Common Sense and The Rights of Man.
All right, let's peel back yet another layer. And this is where things get, well, a little weird. A little mysterious. You know, every old town has its legends, but the stories they tell in Lewes are something else.
First up, something you would never ever expect to hear about in southern England, an avalanche. Yep. On December 27, 1836, a massive buildup of snow just slid off a cliff face and completely buried a row of houses, killing 8 people. It was this bizarre, tragic disaster, and there's a local pub called the Snowdrop Inn that stands as a memorial to it today.
And then you've got this story. It's just a fantastic piece of local folklore. So after Thomas Becket was murdered in 1170, the 4 knights who did it reportedly fled to a place near Lewes. The legend says that when they tried to put their bloody weapons down on this heavy stone table, the table itself physically shook and threw them onto the floor, as if it refused to be tainted by their crime. Okay, time for a little pop quiz. A bit of high culture in a really unexpected spot. What world-famous masterpiece do you think was once just sitting in a stable in Lewes? Any ideas?
Believe it or not, it's Rodin's The Kiss. An eccentric American collector, Edward Perry Warren, ordered a version of it and had it shipped to his home, Lewes House.
Turns out it was a little bigger than he expected, so for a while, this iconic symbol of love and passion was just kept out in his stables.
And trust me, the mysteries do not stop there. For centuries, people have sworn there are secret tunnels under the town, used by everyone from monks to smugglers. Some locals will tell you that on misty mornings, they can still hear the phantom shouts of a market that vanished long ago. And others report seeing ghostly processions of monks, still chanting on the very spot where their great priory was torn down.
So, what happens when you take all these layers, the history, the rebellion, the folklore, and mash them all together? Well, you get modern Lewes, where the past isn't just something you read about, it's something you live.
And it all comes to a head in one explosive, absolutely incredible event, Lewes Bonfire, the biggest November 5th celebration on the planet. And this is so much more than just Guy Fawkes. It's a deeply felt ritual. They carry 17 burning crosses through the streets for those martyrs. It's a fiery, wild procession. And it's cutting political commentary, with giant effigies of unpopular figures paraded through town before being, spectacularly burned.
But the town's influence isn't just about politics and fire. It's also about science. Because right here, a local doctor completely changed how we see the world and its history.
So the story goes like this. Dr. Gideon Mantell is off visiting a patient. Meanwhile, his wife, Marianne, is waiting for him and happens to spot a weird-looking fossilized tooth in a pile of rocks. Well, that tooth belonged to an iguanodon. And Mantell's work on it, right here in town, basically helped kickstart the entire science of paleontology, a world-changing discovery all because of a local doctor's curiosity.
And that spirit of fierce independence, it's not just some relic of the past. It's alive and kicking today. You can literally taste it at Harvey's Brewery, which has been going since 1790. You see it in all the thriving independent shops. You can even spend it with the Lewes pound, a local currency they created just to keep the town's economy stubbornly self-reliant.
So in the end, Lewes is so much more than just a pretty town. It's like a living lesson plan. It tells a story about the fight for democracy, about sacrifice, about a stubborn, unbroken chain of independence. And it kind of leaves us with a question, doesn't it? If these streets could talk, what could this one small town teach us about our own power to remember, to question, and to defy?